Okay, so we will move on to the second presentation. The second presentation is multisensory display of self-avatar's physiological state. Virtual breathing and heart beating can increase sensation of effort in virtual reality. The authors are Yann Moullec, Justine Saint-Aubert, Julien Manson, Mélanie Cogné, Anatole Lécuyer. The presenter is Yann Moullec, I guess.
Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation on our work called Multisensory Display of Self-Avatar's Physiological State. Virtual breathing and heart beating can increase sensation of effort in VR. So I'm Yann Moullec, a PhD student from INRIA Rennes in France, and here are my co-authors. So in many VR simulations, the user is less physically involved than his avatar. For instance, in video games or in VR rehabilitation therapy, you may find yourself in such situations. So for instance, you may have a seated user controlling his avatar with a controller, and the avatar is walking in a virtual environment. So the objective of our work was to increase the user's sense of effort. So in general, you may have several strategies to do so. So involve the user in the avatar's activity, or you may try to trick the user into thinking he's making more effort by displaying the avatar's physiological activity. So this is the approach we chose. So more specifically, we used the multisensory display of avatar's physiological parameters during a passive walking simulation as a means to increase user's sensation of effort. So you may know biofeedback as the fact of measuring a physiological activity on a user and then feed it back to them in order to teach them how to control it. So our system is not exactly a biofeedback system, rather it is a fake biofeedback system where the physiological activity is generated and then displayed to the user. And so we generate the physiological activity as a function of the avatar's effort in the virtual environment. So past work has already suggested several ways to display physiological parameters in VR. So here I'm only going to focus on cardiac and respiratory activity since they are the most common and they are the one we focus on. So for instance, Shen and colleagues proposed a design space exploration where they compared bisensory modalities, bisensory displays of physiological parameters. So for instance, visual plus audio or audio plus haptic. And they assessed which one the users preferred. Then Jane and colleagues proposed a VR scuba diving simulator using a multisensory display of user respiratory activity. So it's the only example from the literature where we found a multisensory display for breathing activity, but it is only adapted to scuba diving simulation, as you can see in the image. And finally, some work have suggested to combine the display of physiological parameters using cardiac and respiratory activity at the same time, but they did not assess the impact of combining the parameters, and they only focus on visual and audio cues. Finally, the effects of displaying physiological parameters has been assessed on embodiment, effort sensation, and physiology. So our contribution to this field is to design a consistent set of 3 sensory modalities for the display of cardiac and respiratory activity. And we evaluate our design systematically with 3 user studies. So let's start with our display. So first, virtual heart beating. So the visual and audio cues are presented using an HMD. And the haptic cue is presented using a wristband placed on the dominant end. And as you can see, the visual representation is a gray peripheral overlay in peripheral vision. So at each heartbeat, the overlay shrinks. Then, as you can hear, the audio cue is a heartbeat sound, and the vibration applied to the user's wrist follows exactly the same pattern as the other cues. So we evaluated this first display in a first study, including 30 participants. So the experimental design was the following. We had a seated participant observing his avatar in first-person perspective, as you could see earlier. And the avatar was walking on a straight path on a slope of increasing steepness. This was designed to make the physiological activity change during the simulation. And it was a within-subject study design with 5 conditions, so 1 for each of the sensory modalities alone, 1 for the combination of all 3, and 1 control condition where we did not display anything. And our measures included embodiment, self-report walking, and effort sensation. So for the results of this first study, we have an effect of condition on effort sensation. So the multisensory condition induces more effort sensation than the control condition. And it is also preferred by a majority of participants, which is 40%. Then let me introduce you to virtual breathing. So once again, audio and visual cues are presented using the HMD. And this time, the haptic representation is a novel haptic device, which we developed. So it's a compression belt. As you can see, there's a motor attached to the user's back. There's a white support on which is attached an elastic band. So when the motor spins, it delivers a pressure stimulus on the user's waist. And since the motor is controlled by our application, everything is synchronized. So let's switch to first-person perspective view. So the visual representation, as you can see here, is a breathing cloud. So it appears every time the avatar expires. Then, as you can hear, the audio representation is a breathing sound, and maybe you cannot see it very well, but here you have a pressure stimulation on the user. So once again, we performed a user study on this display. So we included 20 participants, and the experimental design was pretty much the same as in the first study, except that this time we added an additional measure, which was user breathing activity, to see if the user tended to synchronize with the displayed respiratory activity. So the results of this study are the following. So first, we had an effect on 2 subcomponents of embodiment, which were in the chosen questionnaire, appearance and response. So in both of these variables, we had the multisensory condition, which induced more appearance and response than the control condition. The same goes for effort sensation, like in the first study. And finally, we have an effect on breathing offset, which shows, so breathing offset is a metric that is basically a distance between user and avatar breathing. So a low value means a high synchronization between the two. And you can see that the multisensory condition is the highest synchronization. And we have an effect of all of the other conditions as well. Finally, we performed the last study on the combination of all displays. So here is a sample video of the user study. And once again, the experimental design was almost the same, except that this time we had only 3 conditions. So 1 for the multisensory display of cardiac activity, 1 for breathing activity, and 1 for the combination of the 2. And I won't go into too much detail, but we have, once again, an effect of combining both physiological parameters on effort sensation and on user preference as well. So I'd like to discuss a few things in our work. So first, the effects of our displays, our breathing display on embodiment. So where the multisensory condition induced more appearance and response than the control condition. This could be attributed to several causes. I'm only going to give one in this presentation. So this could be attributed to breathing synchronization. So as you can remember probably, the multisensory condition induced more synchronization between user and avatar breathing. So that would bring our system closer to a regular biofeedback system, which was shown for breathing display to induce more sense of embodiment. So that could explain our results. In the future, we would like to investigate the effect of customizing the physiological response to the users themselves in order to further enhance the sense of embodiment with our displays. Next, we have no effect of our visual displays on any of the variables we measured. So this is consistent with previous work that reported the visual representations to be quite disturbing. So we would like to investigate bisensory modalities in the future to see if getting rid of the visual displays would maybe enhance user experience. And other leads for future work include the testing of our displays into more concrete applications like video games and rehabilitation therapy. So to summarize our results, we can say that displaying avatar physiological parameters to users can indeed increase users' sensation of effort. We find the results are best using multisensory display, and that breathing display seems to be more compelling than cardiac display. And we can also, with a breathing display, influence the sense of embodiment. And this work could benefit all the simulations where we want to induce a sensation of effort without actually making the user exert more effort. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, now Q&A session. Is there any question or comment?
Thank you very much for the very interesting talk. I was wondering if you see if the combination of just the vision and the auditory and the haptics will work just as well, as good as the combination of the three, because the vision condition does not seem to work well, yeah. And also the seeing visually the heartbeat might not be that realistic. That is not a normal experience.
Could you repeat the question? I'm not sure I got it right.
Yeah, so you compared a couple of the conditions, no feedback, auditory only, visual only, haptics only, all the combination of the three. So what about the combination of only the two of the auditory and the haptics?
Yeah, this would probably work well. That's why I said in the last part of my presentation that we would like to investigate this as well, since the visual was not at all appreciated by participants. So yeah, this would be interesting to test in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for a nice talk. I'm Riku Otono from NICE, and did you get some qualitative measurement or freestyle free comment from their participants after the experiment, and if so, is it consistent with your quantitative measurement or real result?
We got some feedback and comments. I think participants appreciated our displays, and they thought it was quite compelling. Like some of them thought that their real heart rate, for example, was actually getting higher. We did not measure for that, but we expected that it wasn't getting actually higher. So that shows that our displays were, compelling, and that effort sensation was indeed higher using our displays.
Thanks. Any question or comment? So, okay, I have one. So, as I understand correctly, the paper you referred for providing fake heart rate feedback induced a sensation of effort in other cases. So, so in these two papers, the participants were really exercised, but in your context, so user is just sit on the chair, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think so that this difference will affect the result or not?
I mean, if we try to use our displays in situations where the user is not passive,
I think the meaning of the fake is a little bit different from yours.
yeah, that would probably, like, if the user performs a physical activity, that would probably affect effort sensations as well. So maybe the effects of our display won't be so high in comparison to making an actual effort. This would be interesting to try it in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll run out of the time, so let's thank the speaker again.